Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. Open your mind's door to J-Snip 4. American dream, relocated to Tennessee. Now he's on 10 acres, GMO free. Planting info seeds in the minds of the sheep.
I think I said this once before, but I said, man, you know, if you thought 2012 was full of just all kinds of things happening, man, this year is already, I think, exceeding 2012. Reauthorizing the indefinite detention of U.S. citizens without charge might be the scariest provision in next year's defense spending bill. You know, the same one they tried to put in this one, and they were forced to clarify. Is this detention, you know, without due process of law, whatever, for U.S. citizens? Well, only if they're engaged in terrorism. Oh, okay. And again, who decides if you're engaging in terrorism? It just takes anybody in the presidential cabinet to determine that. Oh, yeah, okay, grab them. But he says, that might be the scariest provision, but it's not the only one worth worrying about. An amendment tagged on the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013 would allow for the United States government to create and distribute pro-American propaganda within the country's own borders under the alleged purpose of putting Al-Qaeda's attempts at persuading the world against Western ideals on ice. Former U.S. representatives went out of their way to ensure their citizens that they'd be excluded from government-created media blasts, but the two lawmakers currently serving the country are looking to change all that. Congressman Mac Thornberry, Republican, Texas, and Adam Smith, Democrat, Washington, oh, look, bipartisanship, great, introduced the Smith-Munt Modernization Act of 2012, H.R. 5736, last week during discussions for the NDAA 2013. It was voted on by the House of Representatives to be included in next year's defense spending bill, which was then voted on as a whole and approved. The amendment updates the antiquated Smith-Munt Act of 1948 and Foreign Relations Authorization Act of 1987, essentially clarifying that the U.S. State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors may, quote, prepare, disseminate, and use public diplomacy information abroad, end quote. But while also striking down a long-lasting ban on the domestic dissemination in America. For the last several decades, the federal government has been authorized to use such tactics overseas to influence foreign support of America's wars abroad, but has been barred from such strategies within the U.S. If next year's NDAA clears the U.S. Senate and is signed by President Obama, and it will be if they pass it, with this provision intact, then restrictions on propaganda being force-fed to Americans would be rolled back entirely. I thought they were already doing that. I thought they were already using propaganda on ourselves, you know, on us Americans. If they have to put it in writing and put it into a bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, which we have to allow that. I mean, that's a spending bill. It has to pass. Any provisions attached to that have to go through. We can't wait on that because it affects national defense spending. So we've got to just whatever's in there, pass it, pass it, pass it, pass it. That's what'll happen. So, if you thought the propaganda that you and I have already been receiving was bad, which I thought it was, holy crap, is it about to get much worse? Which is actually good. It is actually a very good thing if they do that. Because the more that they realize they have to do that because people are waking up, the more brazen, the more powerful of nonsense propaganda they'll have to come up with to try to convince you otherwise. Which only does one thing. Lets you know that they're really, really trying to convince you of something. Even the most hardened person who thinks their news is great and they don't lie is going to see probably some of the crap that they put out and say, wait a minute, hold on a second. There's no way that that's real. There's no way that that's truthful. So it'll actually have an opposite effect of wakening the masses up even more, in my opinion. Having said that, the indefinite detention of U.S. citizens, that's in there. That's also back in there. So, unbelievable. They fail this year. Don't worry. We'll try again next year. We'll try it again next year, guys. Unbelievable. Take care.